Good morning. Welcome to Mountain Vista Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Northwest Tucson. We are coming to you today in a hybrid, multi-platform format. We have a small group of enthusiastic folks, right? Enthusiastic. Woo! Right here in our beautiful new sanctuary, and more joining us remotely, and I'm sure they are equally as enthusiastic. I extend a very warm welcome to you all. Whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever your beliefs may be, you are welcome here. We are stronger and we are better because you are here. I'm Deborah Roberts, and I'm a Pastoral Associate here at MVUU. Today, I, along with our board president and my life partner, Tom Sawyer, will be leading the service. I'm joined by first-time PA Susan Alexander. Susan, thank you for your willingness to take on this role. I'm hoping that with the addition of a couple of new PAs, you'll be seeing my face a little less often. Our beloved interim minister, the Reverend Dr. Samantha Wilson, who yesterday married her beloved, Andrew Clinard, AKA John Gary, and is actually going to escape with him for a few joyless days, and that's two words, joy with a capital J, and I'm sure that their honeymoon days will be filled with joy, but they are beloved daughter joy in the care of somebody else as they escape to spend some time together. Our talented music director, Chris Tackett, is at the piano today. Many thanks to Lee and Cass, who are managing the technology so that we can come to you in a multi-platform kind of way, and to our cameraman, Chuck Tatum. I'm sure that many of you join us with mixed emotions today. Again, there is the joy of being together and the joy of finally being able to hold services at our beautiful new location, and the joy in our multi-platform capability so that many of you can join us remotely. But many of us come with heavy hearts because of the ongoing atrocities in the war in Ukraine, which appears to be developing into an extended siege. The stories of Ukrainians who have had to flee their homes, leaving their belongings and sometimes elderly relatives and pets behind. The horrible images of that maternity hospital that was intentionally bombed. The bewildered faces of children who do not understand what is happening. All of these tug at our heartstrings and challenge our UU belief in the inherent worth and dignity of all people. May we, in our thoughts and prayers, send strength and healing energy to those who are in the path of danger, and courage to those who are so bravely defending their homeland. I'm going to call on Susan now to read a poem that was especially written for this occasion as we light our chalice.
Good morning. This prayer was penned by UU minister, Reverend Jen Grayson. Spirit of life and love, our hearts are aching today as we watch fear and terror being inflicted on Ukraine. We pray from afar, seeing people flee in fear, praying in the streets, gripped by an uncertainty that echoes in our hearts. We have known uncertainty and fears these last 2 years, and while we are aware it is nothing like war, we are reminded of our tie to the humanity of those we have never known. We pray for the parents trying to protect their children. We ache for the children as forces outside of their control shatter their world. We ache for those doing what they can to flee the movements of nations, and we pray for those who cannot flee. May the world not turn its face away from this pain, even in those moments when we, as individuals, must rest our spirits. May our thoughts and prayers become actions that end war and the threat of war forever. And now please join me in a moment of silence as we think about those people in the Ukraine.
Today is Stewardship Sunday, Tom Bunch's favorite word. You should have received your stewardship forms in the mail this week, but we're not going to discuss that here today. We are not here to directly ask you for money. You will not have to sign on the dotted line today. We have chosen instead to try to give you a picture of what kinds of programs and services our church provides, what some members of our congregation find important, what they receive, and also what they give, not so much in terms of treasure, but more in terms of time and talent. We'll be hearing from Richard Kopp, Samar and Tom Bunch. We're also going to be featuring the children's book, The Giving Tree, by Shel Silverstein, and we have our own giving tree right here. And we're taking a closer look at the lessons contained in this book. And then Tom and I will be breaking this down and also talking about our own motivation for giving to MVUU in many different ways. So without further ado, take it away, Richard.
Well, good morning. I'm happy to see you here in the sanctuary. I'm happy to be here in the sanctuary, and I'm glad to talk without my mask. I'm glad to talk without my mask. I'm here to talk about pastoral care here at MVUU in particular. But the most important thing I have to say this morning is this. When you are troubled, be it trivial or grave, with illness, pain, worry and anxiety, practical problems, financial problems, social problems, any problems, don't hesitate. Don't hesitate to talk with someone. There is always someone in our MVU congregation you can talk with. I remembered a couple of weeks ago, a two-line song in our hymnal, the Living Tradition hymnal. I don't think we've ever sung it here, but the words go like this. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, together we live. Giving, receiving, giving, part of the same dynamic, the dynamic of living. And yet it's not always easy to give or to receive. We have congregation members and others who by their temperament and training are looking out for the well-being of others. And of course, our minister, Reverend Sam Wilson, is our guide star. These are the members of the MVUU Pastoral Care Associates. I'd like to raise up now two members of our members who retired this year from the Pastoral Care Associates, Reverend Christiana Haida and Betty Meikle. We were really sad to see them go, but they felt it was time for them to retire. They are so wonderfully sensitive and experienced in this. They are so naturally concerned about the well-being of others and so wise in the help they propose to offer. Yes, the Pastoral Care Associates is a committee of our congregation. It's organized as committees are with leadership, membership, meetings, agenda, and budget. And we offer cards and calls and gifts in token of our caring. And sometimes we also do provide material support. In addition, we have here in our congregation the congregation's ministerial discretionary fund. This is within the purview and control of our minister. And we do not hear often about how she meets with people who are in greater need, perhaps. At our last meeting, she mentioned several people, not by name, but who were in need, in financial need, and I became convinced. I'm already planning to increase my contribution, but I'm going to give even more. And of course, we have so many needs in our congregation, I don't expect my dollars, I'm not making my dollars go, particularly to the ministerial care fund, discretionary fund, but I am moved to give more because I know there are people out there who are in financial need, and quite frankly, Cynthia and I are well off. In fact, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about our own story. When Cynthia and I came down with a breakthrough case of COVID last September, first we thought, well, we can manage to get by and get through this by ourselves. But really, we were dragged down severely by fatigue. And that was the main symptom. And we're supposed to quarantine for 10 to 14 days as well. We were making it okay, but the meals every day became a problem for us. Now, Pastoral Care has a program called Meal Train, an online program to recruit and schedule volunteers to provide meals to shut-ins. Jeannie Underwood on the Pastoral Care team told us about Meal Train, and for 5 days, MVUU Good Fairies, as Cynthia called them, brought delicious meals to our door. The portions were so large, we ate the leftovers for a second meal. We had 10 meals, a boon and a joy to Cynthia and me every day through our time with COVID. But the moral of my story is somewhat different. Cynthia and I had hemmed and hawed about, should we ask for these meals? Should we accept these meals? Shouldn't we not bother them? Shouldn't we manage by ourselves? But underneath this, I suspect, we really didn't want to feel dependent. We didn't want to feel needy, didn't want to trouble others. That's all wrong. That's all wrong thinking. We're not, and we don't need to be alone. Well, you may remember that other old song, when you're down and troubled and you need some loving care, you've got a friend. You've got a friend right here at our MVUU congregation in the Pastoral Care Associates. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Samar. I've been a member of MVUU since 2013. And I want to say that MVUU has really been a part of my life through some major transitions. My marriage to Chris was officiated by Reverend Ron Ferries. My mother's death in 2015, as well as the birth of two of my kids, Addie and Lucas, who you'll probably see running around today. Through each one of those events, I got calls, cards, and with both births of my children, I was a recipient of the meal train. And so, and Rich, you and Cynthia brought over food both times, and I really appreciated it. The influence, and over COVID, so not even taking that in account, over the last year, MVU has been an even bigger part, an integral part of my life. Just the connection, the community, the various ways I connected to people virtually, it made a huge difference. The influence MVU has played in the role of my kids has been more indirect. We definitely tried to include them virtually, but toddlers and Zoom was not a success at times. But my kids were influenced by how I was impacted and how I showed up in relationship to them and the influence that I had on them because of MVUU. Moving forward, I do believe that MVU will play a more direct role in their lives, and I feel that influence will happen in a variety of ways. I'd like to take a step back and discuss a few things that have happened over the last few months and conversations I've had with my daughter, Addie. If you've met Addie, Addie's pretty social. She tells me a lot of what goes on in the lives of her friends, and it kind of scares me to know that potentially what her friends' parents might be hearing about us. And so she has, there have been a few things. She has also shared, very indirectly that two of her friends have friends who have same-sex parents. And she's mostly focused more on like getting me to connect to them in order to have play dates. And one of the things that really stuck out for me is that, as she tells me very matter-of-factly, that some people have two mommies, some people have two daddies, some have one, some have a variety. And I think about what's happening in Florida right now. And I wonder if a similar law is passed where teachers can't be supportive and talk about things openly, what those conversations with her would look like, and how her friends would be impacted if they aren't able to share and be in community with her and able to talk openly about their families. Another conversation that came up with her recently was President's Day. She had to do some project with George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, and her and I were just chatting about that, and I mentioned slavery, and she's like, well, what's that? Trying to explain slavery to a 5-year-old in a way that doesn't cause too much pain is, I think, impossible. And just watching her trying to process that and start to get tearful and bring it up several times over the next week in terms of, well, then why were people taken away from their parents? It was painful to watch. These conversations really highlight for me the importance of having a religious liberal home. Discussions on acceptance, on inherent worth and dignity, on immigration, on racism, as well as on finding ways to develop self-awareness and developing the ability to think critically are huge. They're important. As my kids grow up, potentially in a state where curriculums might be cut down and things might be taken out, it's really important to have a home where other information is offered to them, where they are in tune and connected to adults who will also nurture other parts of them. I can't speak for other parents, but I can tell you that by the time I get home after working and my husband gets home from after working and sleepless nights because they sometimes wake up at 3 or 4 or 5, or just a variety of things that can happen with kids, that sometimes we don't have the bandwidth to be able to have those conversations in an ongoing way. And so having a community that, and as well as an RE program, but more specifically a community where that can be nurtured and that can be supported is invaluable. I haven't been able to pledge the amount I would like to. I've been able to keep up to the 2 to 3% as my income has changed, and tried to bump up my pledge by several increments every year. But to be honest, childcare is expensive. I could do a whole sermon on that. Diapers are also pretty expensive. I'm really trying to push the potty training, which is not going well right now. Medical expenses, all of those really add up. So the years I haven't been able to contribute in ways that I would like to, I've done my best to make an effort to contribute in other ways. I've been involved with the endowment committee. I've been involved in community on ministry, on the search committee. And sometimes people ask me about that time. And for me, it's valuable. I can't contribute in one way. I try to contribute in others. Things are going to change in the next few years. Childcare is going to become less and less. Hopefully soon, diapers won't be an issue. And so we have been planning on increasing our pledge as time goes on, because this is important, not just for the kids in the RE program, but them growing up in a community that supports the values that we want them to really grow up with. And so with that, thank you very much for allowing me to be up here. It was a pleasure to see all of you, and blessed be.
Bunch. It's so good to be here with you in the flesh, in the morning. It's been too long. I teared up writing that last sentence a couple days ago. There's a word for that. It's called kama muta, with a K. It means moved to tears or deeply moved by something very good or beautiful. And it's a big reason I'm here and have been here for the past 18 years. Being working in community has moved me to tears and shaped me deeply for 40 years. Community work began for me in graduate school when I joined my first committee. It was the Committee on Central America. We Democrats, Social Democrats, Socialists, Communists, and Trotskyites gathered together to oppose the US war efforts in Central America. I have loved committees ever since. Fast forward to MVUU, 2 years in the Religious Education Committee, 3 years on Building and Grounds, 5 years in Stewardship. and now 3 years in membership and community connections, and on your new minister search team. In that first committee on Central America, and in the subsequent committees, there have been disagreements. Should we send postcards to our representatives or send arms? Should we stay or go at a particular location? Are we experiencing scarcity or abundance? Are we fearful or hopeful? And we listened to each other, and we were moved. Kamamuta. And we were moved. We changed and we grew. We extended ourselves in order to care for ourselves and others. That's what love is. As M. Scott Peck wrote in The Road Less Traveled, love is the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. For me, love is the key at MVUU. It's the will to extend ourselves for the purpose of nurturing our own and others' spiritual growth. Most recently, for me, that extending has been to get involved in beloved conversations and transforming hearts. Rather late in life, I am grappling with how the culture passed down to me from the birth of our nation, that of white supremacy culture, reverberates through me, my culture, our institutions. It centers me and marginalizes others. In the words of Adrienne Marie Brown, we must let go of the status quo. Embracing change is non-negotiable, and collaboration is the cornerstone. We do this together in collaboration, in community. We are building a collective theology of love, extending ourselves to nurture ourselves and others' spiritual growth. And others get to define what that means for them. This love work calls me to extend not only my time and effort, but also my financial self to support this work and make sure it has the leadership and guidance that comes with a professional minister, music director, religious exploration, technology, and administrative staff. I've been and will continue to resource this aspect of my life, because I don't have to pay for diapers, by contributing 6 to 7% of my adjusted gross income to MVUU. This puts me in the visionary column of that income, for my income level, in that UUA Fair Share Giving Guide that I hope you will take a look at in the coming week. It's part of the material. Please join me if you can. Let us be visionary and resource MVUU to be our visionary space in the world. For planned giving, or my bequest to you, if I die tomorrow, 10% of my net worth is headed your way. MVUU definitely provides 7 to 10% of the love in my life. Giving that amount to our spiritual growth just keeps my finances in balance with who I am and who we are together. Thank you.
Hey, Tom, did you read The Giving Tree to your kids when they were young?
Yes, we would read it often at night at bedtime. Yeah.
And what was the message that why was it important? What message did you want them to get from the book?
I very much wanted my children to have a loving heart, that they would be able to be a help to others, that they would be able to share and have a generous spirit.
Mm-hmm. And were there other values? What other values did you want to impart to them?
Well, I think like probably many people either watching by Zoom or here in the audience that have children, you want your children to be well equipped to deal with their lives and the anchoring of their values. And so I really had hoped that my children, through the Loving Tree and through other experiences, would learn about the important anchors in their life, besides love and generosity. Certainly things like honesty, like open-mindedness, acceptance of others, justice, and so forth. Yeah.
Too bad you didn't know about Unitarian Universalism back then, Tom.
No, I didn't, unfortunately. What I found in Unitarian Universalism was really a home. Some of you may know that I am a fairly latecomer to UU life. I started coming here in 2015, and I didn't even know you existed for most of my life. One of the things that happened was that when I came here, I found that much of my sense of alienation went away. So it was a very important feeling of belonging for the first time in a spiritual sense. What speaks to you in this book?
Well, I think it's about selfless giving, and giving, not expecting anything in return, but giving because you can and because another person is in need. I think, that's the message to me in this book.
Yeah.
Did you know that this book was kind of controversial? It was published in 1964.
How so?
Well, let me tell you how so. Some think that it's the relationship between the tree and, I'm going to say she, because many people see in the tree a mother figure. So the relationship between the tree and the boy is very positive, because the tree nurtures the boy and gives the boy what he needs along the way. Some think it's more negative, because the boy just takes and takes and takes and doesn't give anything in return. And the final gift of the tree is, what the man needs the boy, who's now a man, needs to complete his life. But, we don't need to get into the controversy today. I think the central message for me is about the messages that we need to be there for each other, that we need to help each other.
Yeah. In this season of giving, how do you think of stewardship? How does it come up for you?
Not the first time I've been asked this question in my stewardship visit from Sam and Tom. To me, I always think of giving in proportion to the importance that something has in my life. And so the church is very, very important in my life. I was also kind of a lost soul before I moved to Tucson in 2010 and came to the church on the very first Sunday I was here. And it really helped me to establish myself in this community, to find people of like interests and beliefs. And, I even met somebody that I, spend my life with in this church. So,
And who would that be?
Don't know. In any case, I just, it's important to me, so it's important to me that I give and support the work of this church. How about you, Tom?
Well, when I think of stewardship, I think of I think of a set of experiences that I had often when I was growing up and in my early adult life. I struggled a bit, I think, like many young adults do, in trying to figure out what your purpose is. Have you had that experience? I certainly did in spades. And in that process of trying to figure out my purpose, and that's really a lifelong journey. It's not just something you settle on once, I think. But one of the experiences along that path, as I started my career in healthcare, I found a number of things that really troubled me about the system of healthcare. The inequity of it, first of all, the lack of care oftentimes. Now, there are many wonderful people that work in healthcare, but there's also a lot of greed. There's a lot of people who I don't think have good motives about caring for others. I think there's a lot of racial issues involved in the lack of justice, the lack of accessibility in healthcare. And so I remember walking down a hallway one day after I'd been in practice for several years and feeling, boy, I think I had a number of patients that I was in the middle of working with, and their insurance would cut them off, and so they'd be sent home from the hospital. And I would feel so frustrated by that. And I remember feeling like, what could I do to change the system? And then it dawned on me that I don't have the power to change the entire healthcare system in the United States, but what I can do is light a candle. And so that began to formulate in me a sense of purpose. And the purpose is that I felt that in lighting a candle, it was up to me. If not me, then who? If not when, then now. That I would begin to become a disciple of what I call the invisible, a steward of the invisible. That is to say that it was up to me to make sure that the values of caring, of generosity, of time, talent, and treasure, of listening, of love and kindness were up to me to make sure that those things stand up against the forces that were acting in that system. So for me, when I think about what stewardship means and what this little film means, it means to me that it's up to me. It's up to me to make sure that the values that I want to promote for myself and for my children really receive the resources that they need. How about you? What does it bring up in you?
Well, Chris has been playing today from you I receive to you I give. And I think that's the message that I'd like people to leave with, that we receive so much from being part of this community. And hopefully we are able to repay that in whatever way we're able to. Time, talent, and treasure, it comes down to again.
Yeah.
And you, Tom?
Well, what I would like for those of you in the audience and those of you watching on Zoom to take away from this service is that it's really up to us. We live in a world that's continually becoming more and more troublesome in the sense that there are more and more challenges to the things that liberal religion stands for. I think of the challenges to democracy, to peace, to being generous, to living a life of truthfulness. All these things are under great attack today. And so one of the things that I think is so important that we take away is that these efforts that we all collectively generate to try to push back against those issues require resources. This building is a great example. This building is a home. It's a spiritual home. It's a home that we work very hard to create, and it requires resources. The things you heard today, pastoral care, religious exploration, so many of the programs that we have require resources. And so it inspires me, and I hope that this service today inspires you to think generously when it comes to this season of giving. We're about to conclude by listening to Ripple by the Grateful Dead. I know it's one of your favorite songs.
It is indeed.
One that you often sing. Why do you want to include that song today?
Well, I really love the song. It's the simplicity of the melody. And when you think of the Grateful Dead, you don't think of folk songs. But this really is an American folk song and a catchy tune. But the Dead actually only performed it 39 times and never performed it again after Jerry Garcia died in 1995. So it wasn't a big part of their repertoire, but to me, it's my favorite of all of their songs. And I think it's, in addition to the melody, it's the message. It's a group of people who are seeking. They're seeking to find a way through life. And they extend helping hands to each other along the way, trying to make sense of what life means. And I think that it's about embracing joy and joy through music, which is certainly something that's very important to me. But I think the key message in this song is the fact that we're all in this together. And if we work together, we'll make progress.
As we close our service here in a few moments, let me remind you that we will be having fellowship hour in a few minutes out on the patio. And as you exit the sanctuary, you'll find a wooden bowl and a woven basket. The wooden bowl is for your donations for the ongoing operations of the church. Our woven basket is a donation to the schools project that our church sponsors, headed by Chuck Tatum. The woven basket donations go to fund a number of projects with schools locally in the neighborhood here that have a majority, if you will, of students that are living below the poverty line. They have a number of needs that Chuck can fill you in on or coordinate with you if you want to do any volunteer work for them. So please consider as you your donations as you leave the sanctuary. Those of you online, if you would like to donate, please look at your newsletter, and there will be a place that you can go online and donate to these causes. And Robin Balsell will be hosting your fellowship hour in just a few moments. So at this point, we're going to end our chalice lighting extinguishing will occur. Yeah.
The closing words are from the prophet by Khalil Gibran. Then said a rich man, "Speak to us of giving." And he answered, "There are those who give little of the much which they have, and they give it for recognition, and their hidden desire makes their gifts unwholesome. And there are those who have little and give it all. These are the believers in life and the bounty of life, and their coffers are never empty. There are those who give with joy, and that joy is their reward. And there are those who give with pain, and that pain is their baptism. And there are those who give and know not pain in giving, nor do they seek joy, nor give with mindfulness of virtue. They give as in yonder valley the myrtle breathes its fragrance into space. Through the hands of such as these, God speaks, and from behind their eyes, he smiles upon the earth.